Picture a man standing tall in a sun-drenched land, surrounded by fields bursting with life, his home filled with the laughter of his children, his name revered far and wide. This is Job, a man whose wealth and faith make him a legend in the land of Uz. But in a single day, his world collapses, his riches vanish, his children are taken, his body is struck with unbearable pain. Yet, from the ashes of his broken life, he lifts his eyes to heaven and says, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." Welcome to the Untold Scriptures, where we uncover the hidden depths of the Bible's most profound stories. Today, we're diving into the epic tale of Job, a journey of loss, faith, and a secret revealed in the whirlwind that will leave you speechless. This isn't just a story of suffering, it's a revelation of what it means to trust God when everything falls apart. So, grab a seat, open your heart, and let's step into the land of Uz, where the greatest test of faith is about to begin. We're in Uz, a place where the sun burns bright, the fields are fertile, and life thrives in abundance. At the center of it all is Job, a man unlike any other. He's not just wealthy, he's staggeringly so. 7,000 sheep graze his pastures. 3,000 camels roam his lands, 500 yoke of oxen plow his fields, and 500 donkeys carry his goods. His household is vast, with servants numbering in the hundreds, and his influence stretches across the east, earning him the title of the greatest man among his people. But it's not his wealth that makes Job extraordinary. It's his heart. The Bible calls him blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil like its poison. His name shines like a beacon in a world often cloaked in shadows. And even God himself will later declare there's no one on earth like him. Job's life is a tapestry of blessings. He's the father of 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters, who are close-knit, gathering often for feasts that echo with joy. These aren't just parties, they're celebrations of family, of life, of unity. His daughters join in, a rare inclusion that speaks to the warmth of his household. Everything is done with abundance, with order, with love. But Job never lets these blessings lull him into complacency. After every feast, he rises early, offering burnt sacrifices for each of his children, praying, perhaps they've sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This isn't just ritual, it's a father's love, a faith that reaches into the unseen, guarding what no eye can discern. Job doesn't trust in his wealth or his reputation, he trusts in God, fully aware that every good thing comes from above. From the outside, Job's life looks perfect. His fields yield endless harvests, his children live in harmony, his servants work diligently, and his name is spoken with reverence. If you asked anyone in Uz who the most blessed man on earth was, they'd point to Job without hesitation. He's the kind of man we all dream of being, prosperous, respected, faithful, untouchable. But here's where the story shifts, where the ground beneath us begins to tremble. While Job tends his flocks, prays for his children, and lives in reverence, something is stirring far beyond the fields of Uz, beyond the reach of human sight. In the heights of heaven, a conversation is unfolding, one that will change Job's life forever. The Bible pulls back the curtain on this moment, and it's nothing short of staggering. Picture the scene: celestial beings, the sons of God, gather before the Lord's throne, and among them is Satan, the accuser, the one who roams the earth, watching, searching for weakness. God speaks first, his voice steady and sovereign. "Where have you come from?" Satan's reply is cold, calculated. "From roaming through the earth and walking back and forth on it." He's not just wandering, he's hunting, probing for flaws in the faithful. Then God does something extraordinary. He lifts up Job's name. "Have you considered my servant Job?" he says, pride resonating in his words. There is no one on earth like him, blameless, upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. Satan doesn't bow to this. His response is sharp, almost a sneer. Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him, his household, his possessions? You've blessed the work of his hands, so his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. It's a bold challenge, not just to Job's faith but to God's character. Satan claims Job's devotion is bought, that his love for God is tied to his blessings. It's an accusation that cuts deep, suggesting true faith can't exist without reward. And here's where the story takes a breathtaking turn. God, in his infinite wisdom, allows the test. Very well, he says. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. With those words, a trial is sealed in heaven, one that will shake the earth below. Job knows none of this. He's still in Uzi, offering sacrifices, walking in integrity, living a life that seems untouched by shadow. But the gears of destiny are turning. While he prays, while his children feast. While the sun rises over his fields, a storm is brewing not in the skies, but in the spiritual realm. His faithfulness is about to be tested, not because he's sinned, not because he's failed, but because of a divine purpose far beyond human understanding. This isn't just Job's story, it's a question for all of us. Can faith endure when the blessings vanish? Can a heart still praise when everything crumbles? The answer lies ahead, in the ashes, in the silence, in the whirlwind. And as we'll see, the secret God reveals to Job is a truth meant for every one of us. This story is heavy, isn't it? It's not just ancient history, it's a mirror for our own lives. Maybe you felt the sting of loss, or the weight of unanswered questions. Maybe you've wondered why the righteous suffer while the wicked thrive. Job's journey is for you too. So stick with us as we dive deeper, where pain meets faith and where God's voice will break through the storm. The land of Uzi is about to become a battlefield, and Job's faith is about to face its greatest trial. Let's see what happens when the storm hits. The sun rises over Uzi, casting golden light across Job's fields. His sheep graze peacefully. His servants tend the cattle, and his children are gathered at the eldest son's house, their laughter floating on the breeze. It's a day like any other, filled with the rhythm of a blessed life. Job is up early, as always, preparing offerings for his children, his heart steady with devotion. But today, that rhythm will shatter. Today, everything Job knows will collapse. Unbeknownst to him, a heavenly wager has been set, and Satan, with God's permission, is moving swiftly to prove Job's faith is fragile, tied to his prosperity. In a single day, the unimaginable unfolds. And Job's world will never be the same. It begins with a servant running toward Job, his face pale, his breath ragged. "My lord," he gasps, "the Sabaeans attacked. They stole the oxen and donkeys and killed the servants with the sword. I alone escaped to tell you." The words hit like a thunderbolt, but before Job can process them, another messenger stumbles in, eyes wild with fear. "Fire from heaven," he cries. "It burned up the sheep and the servants. They're gone. I'm the only one left." Job's heart pounds, his mind reeling, but there's no time to react. A third messenger arrives, trembling. "The Chaldeans formed raiding parties," he says. "They took the camels and killed the servants. I escaped to tell you." Each report is a hammer blow, stripping away Job's wealth, his livelihood, his stability. But the worst is yet to come. A fourth messenger staggers forward, his face drained of color, his voice breaking. "Your children," he whispers, "they were at your eldest son's house. A great wind struck from the desert, and the house collapsed. They're all gone, my lord. All of them." The words land like an avalanche, crushing Job's heart. His 10 children, his joy, his legacy, his future are no more. In a single day, everything he held dear is gone. His fields are empty, his servants dead, his children buried under rubble. The man once called the greatest in the East is now a shadow, standing in a world turned to ruin. What do you do when the unthinkable happens? When the life you've built, the dreams you've cherished, collapse in an instant? Most of us would scream, curse, or crumble. But Job does something that defies understanding. He falls to his knees, tears his robe, a deep sign of mourning, and scatters ashes on his head, a symbol of grief and humility. And then, in the midst of devastation, he worships. Yes, worships. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return," he says, his voice steady despite the pain. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. These aren't words of resignation. They're the declaration of a faith anchored deeper than his circumstances. Job doesn't curse God. He doesn't accuse him. He worships. Because his trust isn't in what he has, it's in who God is. In heaven, the angels must be watching in awe. Satan, who bet on Job's failure, sees a man broken but unbowed. The first test has failed to shatter Job's soul. His faith stands firm, a beacon in the darkness. But Satan isn't done. He's not content with taking Job's possessions and children. He wants to break the man himself. Another scene unfolds in the heavenly courts. The sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and Satan is there again, his presence cold and calculating. God speaks, his voice filled with pride. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, that you incited me against him to ruin him without cause. Satan's response is venomous. Skin for skin, he sneers. A man will give all he has for his own life. Stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. It's a crueler challenge, one that targets Job's very body. God, in his sovereignty, allows it. Very well, he says, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. With that, Satan descends. And Job's body becomes a battlefield. The storm has only just begun, and the man who worshipped through loss is about to face a pain that cuts even deeper. Sores erupt across Job's skin, painful. Festering ulcers that cover him from head to toe. The itching is unbearable. The stench of infected wounds fills the air. Job, once the picture of strength, is now too weak to stand. He sits among the ashes, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery, desperate for even a moment's relief. The man who commanded respect is now a spectacle of suffering, unrecognizable to those who once honored him. His world, already shattered by the loss of his children and wealth, is now a prison of physical torment. In this moment of utter vulnerability, his wife approaches. She sees her husband, her rock, her provider, reduced to a shadow. Her words are sharp, born of despair. Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. It's not just anger. It's the cry of a woman who can't bear to watch him suffer any longer. But her words cut deep, a final blow in Job's darkest hour. Job's response is gentle but resolute. You speak like a foolish woman, he says. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Even now, with his body in ruins, his heart broken, and his wife urging him to give up, Job holds fast. He doesn't curse God. His faith, though battered, is alive. But the storm isn't over. The pain is about to take a new form, one that cuts deeper than sores or loss, loneliness, and judgment. Word of Job's tragedy has spread, and 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, hear of it. They leave their homes, traveling from distant lands to comfort their friend. Their intentions are good. Their hearts heavy with grief. But nothing prepares them for what they find. From a distance, they see a figure hunched in the dust, cloaked in shadow. At first, they doubt it's Job. The man who once stood tall, whose name was synonymous with greatness, is now a broken shell. Their hearts sink, and they do what ancient custom demands. They tear their robes, throw dust on their heads, and cry out in mourning. This isn't just Job's pain, it's theirs too. They sit with him, not saying a word, for 7 days and 7 nights. Imagine that silence, thick with respect, with grief, with the weight of a friend's suffering. They see Job's sores, his hollow eyes, the ashes that cling to him like a shroud. Words feel useless. So they offer none. For now, they simply sit, sharing in his agony. But silence can only hold so long. During those 7 days, something shifts in the friends' minds. They watch Job, they think. They analyze. Why has this happened? How could a man so righteous fall so low? Their hearts, though moved, begin to form theories, rooted in the logic of their time. The righteous are blessed. The wicked are punished. If Job is suffering, there must be a reason. Their silence isn't just respect, it's the quiet of judgment taking shape. Job feels it, even without words. He senses their gaze, their questions, their need to make sense of his pain. And on the 8th day, the dam breaks. Job speaks, not with calm reflection, but with a cry that rips through the stillness, setting the stage for a confrontation that will test his faith even further. Job's voice cuts through the heavy silence of Uzi, raw and trembling with anguish. "May the day of my birth perish." He cries, and the night it was said, "A boy is conceived." These aren't words of rebellion against God, they're the outpouring of a man who can't bear the weight of existence anymore. He doesn't curse his creator, but he curses the day he was born, wishing it could be erased from time, that the night of his conception had never happened. It's a longing for nothingness, for a reality where this pain doesn't exist. "Why did I not perish at birth?" he asks. "Why was I given life only to face this misery?" His words paint death as a place of rest, where kings and slaves, the wicked and the weary find peace. To Job, in this moment, the grave seems kinder than the life he's living. His cry deepens. "What I feared has come upon me," he says. "What I dreaded has happened. I have no peace, no quietness, only turmoil." Job isn't just mourning his losses, he's wrestling with the why. Why would God allow this? Why would a man who lived righteously, who prayed, who sacrificed, be crushed without reason? His faith is still there, wounded but alive, searching for meaning in the chaos. He's not rejecting God. He's pleading with him, spilling out the agony of a heart that trusts but can't understand. This is Job's humanity, not the stoic hero, but the man who feels every cut, every loss, every unanswered question. The friends can't stay silent anymore. Eliphaz, the eldest, speaks first, his tone calm, but his words sharp. "Job," he says, "you've guided others, strengthened the weak, taught righteousness. But now, when trouble comes to you, you falter. Think about it, who, being innocent, has ever perished? Where were the upright destroyed?" Eliphaz's logic is clear. Suffering is punishment. If Job is in pain, he must have sinned. He shares a vision he claims to have had, a whisper in the night that told him no man is righteous before God, not even angels. It's a spiritual jab, implying Job's suffering is proof of guilt. "God corrects the foolish," he says. "Humble yourself and he'll restore you." The words hit Job like salt in his wounds. He's lost everything, his body is in agony, and now his friend offers judgment instead of comfort. Eliphaz doesn't see the heavenly test. He sees only a theology that equates pain with sin. Job listens, his heart burning, but he doesn't lash out. Instead, he responds with a plea for understanding. "Oh, that my anguish were weighed," he says, "it would outweigh the sand of the seas." He's not asking for pity, but for his friends to see the depth of his pain. A despairing man should have the devotion of his friends, he pleads, even if he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. Job is saying, even if I were guilty, shouldn't you comfort me? Why do you judge me instead? He turns to God, his voice a mix of confusion and trust. "If I have sinned, what have I done to you?" he asks. "Why have you made me your target?" Job doesn't claim perfection, but he knows his heart is clean before God. He longs for a mediator, someone to stand between him and the Almighty, to make sense of this pain. Yet, in a moment of stunning faith, he declares, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." This is Job's heart, raw, battered, but unbroken. He doesn't need answers to trust, he needs God. But the friends aren't done. Bildad is next, and his words will cut even deeper, turning Job's pain into a courtroom where his faith is put on trial. The air in Uzi grows heavier, thick with the weight of accusation. Job's cry has bared his soul, but instead of comfort, Eliphaz's words have added judgment to his pain. Now Bildad steps forward, his approach blunt and unyielding. "How long will you say such things?" he asks, dismissing Job's cries as empty wind. "Does God pervert justice? If your children died, it's because they sinned. If you're suffering, it's because you've done something wrong. Seek God sincerely, repent, and he'll restore you." Bildad's theology is simple, almost mechanical. God rewards the righteous, punishes the wicked. To him, Job's pain is evidence of guilt, and his refusal to confess is pride. The words are a cruel blow. suggesting Job's children, his beloved sons and daughters, deserve their fate. Job listens, his heart sinking under the weight of accusation. He doesn't deny God's justice, but he knows he's innocent of the kind of sin Bildad implies. "You know I'm not guilty," he says, turning his eyes to heaven. "No one can rescue me from your hand." He speaks of God shaping him like clay, only to crush him, and the question burns, why? Why would a God so great allow such pain? Job's words aren't rebellion, they're a plea for clarity. He compares his friend's comfort to a dried-up river, promising water, but delivering dust. "I expected devotion," he says, "but you've given me judgment." Then Zophar, the third friend, steps in, and his words are the harshest yet. "You talk too much," he says, "and your words are empty. If God treated you with exact justice, you'd be getting worse than you deserve." Zophar's accusation is brutal. Job isn't just guilty, he's lucky his punishment isn't harsher. He urges Job to repent, promising restoration if he does. But Job has nothing to confess. His conscience is clear, his integrity intact. The friend's logic is relentless, a cycle of blame that traps Job in a corner. They quote Proverbs, share experiences, and lean on the belief that suffering equals sin. But they're wrong. This isn't punishment, it's a test, a divine purpose they can't see. Job's soul is weary now, worn down by loss, pain, and the sting of being misunderstood. He stops engaging their arguments as much, turning instead to God. "Why do the wicked prosper?" he asks, his voice piercing the silence. He sees unrighteous men thriving, their homes secure, their children safe, while he, a man of faith, sits in ruins. They say to God, "Leave us alone," and yet they flourish. How can this be? Job isn't doubting God's power, he's wrestling with his ways. His faith is bold enough to question, honest enough to admit confusion. "If only I could find him," he says. "I would state my case before him and learn what he would say." In a moment of breathtaking faith, Job declares, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth." Even in his pain, his hope reaches for something greater, a trust that God will vindicate him. It's as if he's saying, "You, my friends, don't understand, but God does, and he will answer." The friends keep speaking, round after round, their accusations growing sharper, but Job's focus shifts. He's no longer seeking their approval, he's crying out for God. The silence from heaven is deafening, but his faith refuses to die. He believes, even now, that there's a purpose, even if it's hidden. The courtroom of Uzi is far from over. But a new voice is about to rise, one that will shift the conversation in ways no one expects. Job sits in the ashes, his body a map of sores, his soul a battlefield of questions. His friends Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar have turned his suffering into a trial, their words piling judgment on his pain. Job has answered them, not with anger but with a raw, honest faith, pleading for understanding while clinging to his integrity. The debate has grown heated, circular, exhausting. The friends are convinced Job's suffering is his fault. Job knows he's innocent, but can't make sense of the silence from heaven. They're at a stalemate, their arguments running dry. Just when it seems no one has anything left to say, a new voice breaks through, one that's been silent until now. His name is Elihu, and he's about to change the conversation. Elihu is younger than the others, and he's been waiting, holding back out of respect for his elders. But now a fire burns in him, a restlessness that demands to be heard. "I am young in years, and you are old," he begins, his voice steady but urgent. "But I was silent because I thought wisdom came with age. I see now that it's the spirit God places in a person that gives understanding, not years." It's a bold opening, and he doesn't hold back. He turns first to the three friends, rebuking them for their failure. "You've said much but refuted nothing," he says. You condemn Job without proof, piling words on his pain instead of easing it. Elihu's words are different. They're not laced with the same harsh judgment, but they're not soft either. He's direct, driven by a conviction that there's more to this story than the friends' narrow theology. Then he turns to Job, and his tone shifts not to accuse, but to challenge. "Why do you complain that God doesn't answer?" he asks. "God does speak, Job, but not always in the ways you expect. Through dreams, through visions, even through pain, he reaches out. Sometimes suffering isn't punishment, it's a process, a way to redirect, to teach, to save a soul from something worse. Elihu isn't saying Job is guilty, but he's urging him to look beyond the question of why and consider what God might be doing. He paints a picture of God's greatness, using the world around them as his canvas. Look at the clouds. He says, the thunder, the rain that falls where no man lives. Look at the stars, the cycles of nature, the mysteries we walk beneath every day. God is in all of it, Job. His ways are beyond our grasp, but he's not indifferent. He's mighty, yet he doesn't despise us. He's just, but he desires our good, even when he corrects. Elihu's words aren't meant to wound. They're meant to awaken. He's not offering pat answers, but a perspective that shifts the focus from Job's pain to God's sovereignty. The Almighty is beyond our reach, he says, exalted in power. But he doesn't oppress. Elihu's speech is like a bridge, leading Job from the human arguments of his friends to something greater. He doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he points to hope, to trust, to the God who is always at work, even in silence. His words hang in the air, heavy with meaning, and for a moment, the world holds its breath. The friends are silent, Job is silent. And heaven itself seems to pause. Elihu has said what he needed to say, and now the stage is set for something no one could have predicted. The sky begins to stir, clouds gathering on the horizon. A wind is rising, not an ordinary wind, but one that carries the weight of glory. The whirlwind is coming, and with it, the voice that will change everything. The wind begins to howl across the plains of Uzi, stirring the dust around Job and his friends. The sky darkens, not with the soft gray of rain, but with the weight of something far greater. Clouds swirl, lightning cracks, and the ground trembles. Job, still sitting in ashes, his body racked with sores, lifts his eyes. His friends, silenced by Elihu's words, look up too. This is no ordinary storm. There's power in it, glory, and awe that makes the heart pause. And then, from the heart of the whirlwind, a voice speaks, a voice that shakes the earth. That silences every human argument, that carries the weight of creation itself. The Lord answers Job. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the whirlwind, the Bible says. And what follows is beyond expectation. God doesn't offer comfort, doesn't explain the heavenly wager, doesn't justify Job's suffering. Instead, he asks a question. Who is this that obscures my counsel with words without knowledge? It's not an angry rebuke, but a firm correction, a reminder that Job's perspective, like all human understanding, is limited. Brace yourself like a man, God says, I will question you, and you shall answer me. What follows is a cascade of questions, each one a brushstroke painting the vastness of God's power and wisdom. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? God asks. Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? The words are like thunder, each one revealing the majesty of creation. God speaks of the sea. Its boundaries set by divine command, of the dawn that breaks each morning, of the depths of the ocean and the gates of death. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea? He asks. Have you walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Job is silent, his heart pounding as God's questions continue. The Creator speaks of the storehouses of snow, the paths of the thunderstorm, the rain that falls in deserts where no man lives. He names the constellations Pleiades, Orion, the Bear, each one a testament to his sovereignty. He describes the animals, the lion hunting its prey, the raven crying for food, the mountain goat giving birth, the wild ox that refuses to be tamed. Do you give the horse its strength, God asks, or clothe its neck with a flowing mane? Does the hawk take flight by your wisdom? Every detail, every creature, every mystery of the universe is laid before Job, not to humiliate him, but to awaken him to the grandeur of God. This isn't an answer to Job's why. It's something greater, a revelation of who God is. The whirlwind isn't just a storm, It's a window into divine majesty. God doesn't explain the test with Satan because Job doesn't need to know the behind the scenes. He needs to see the one who holds it all together. Who has put wisdom in the inward parts? God asks. Who has given understanding to the heart? The message is clear. Job, you don't need to understand everything. You need to trust me. The secret of the whirlwind isn't a formula or a reason. It's God himself, sovereign, infinite, and present. The storm is still raging, but Job's heart is beginning to shift, preparing for a response that will redefine his faith. The whirlwind roars around Job, its winds carrying the voice of God, each word a revelation of divine majesty. The questions keep coming. Relentless, painting a picture of a creator who commands the stars, who sets the boundaries of the sea, who gives life to the wild creatures of the earth. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook? God asks, describing a creature of immense power, untamed by man yet under his control. Will it speak soft words to you? The questions aren't meant to crush Job, but to lift his eyes, to show him a God so vast that even suffering finds its place in his presence. Job, still scarred by sores, still mourning his children, listens in silence, his heart beginning to grasp the truth. God's ways are beyond human understanding, but his presence is enough. Shall the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? God asks, and Job begins to respond, his voice small against the storm. I am unworthy, he says. What can I answer you? I put my hand over my mouth. He's starting to see not with his eyes, but with his soul. His pain is still real. His loss is still heavy, but something is shifting inside him. God continues, describing the behemoth, a creature of unmatched strength, and Leviathan, whose breath kindles coals. These beings, fearsome and untamable, live under God's watchful eye. If Job can't control them, how can he judge the Creator's ways? The message sinks deeper. Faith doesn't need explanations, it needs surrender. The whirlwind begins to fade, leaving a silence that's different from before. It's not the silence of absence or despair, it's the silence of reverence, of a heart touched by the divine. Job speaks again, his voice steady, transformed. I know that you can do all things, he says, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. These aren't words of defeat, they're words of surrender. Of a man who's seen God in a new way. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, he continues, but now my eye sees you. This is the heart of Job's journey. He knew God before, through rituals, blessings, a life of faith. But now, in the whirlwind, he's seen God in a way that changes everything, not a physical sight, but a spiritual awakening. A revelation that God is not just a giver of blessings, but the one who holds all things together. Job goes on, his words heavy with humility. I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. This isn't repentance for sin, but for trying to fit God's ways into human logic. For demanding answers when trust was enough. His pain hasn't vanished, his children are still gone, his body still aches, but he's found something greater than explanations, the presence of God. In that presence, his questions don't disappear, but they take their proper place, overshadowed by the majesty of the Creator. The secret of the whirlwind isn't a reason for suffering. It's an encounter with the one who is enough. But God isn't finished. He turns to Job's friends Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, who've spent so long accusing him. My anger burns against you, God says. For you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. It's a stunning moment. Job, who questioned, who cried out, who wrestled with God's silence, is defended by God himself. His honesty, his raw faith, is more pleasing to God than the friends' polished theology. They thought they were defending God's justice, but they missed his heart. God commands them to offer sacrifices, but there's a catch. My servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer. The wounded man becomes the intercessor. And the story is about to take its final, beautiful turn. The silence that follows the whirlwind is profound, filled with the weight of God's presence. Job, still sitting in ashes, his body scarred, his heart transformed, has seen God in a way few ever will. His words of surrender have shifted something, not just in his soul, but in the heavens. Now, God's attention turns to the friends who judged him, and Job's role as intercessor sets the stage for a restoration that goes beyond anything he could have imagined. The story of Job, which began in abundance, descended into ashes, and rose to revelation, is about to come full circle. God's rebuke to Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar is sharp but just. "You have not spoken of me what is right," he says, affirming Job's honesty over their accusations. They're instructed to offer burnt offerings, but the restoration of their relationship with God hinges on Job's prayer. Imagine the humility it takes for Job to do this, to pray for those who added to his pain, who called his suffering punishment, who misunderstood his heart. Yet Job does it. He lifts his voice, not in bitterness, but in mercy, interceding for the very friends who judged him. This act of grace is a testament to the faith that's carried him through loss, pain, and silence, a faith that doesn't just endure, but extends love even in brokenness. And then, in a moment that feels like the dawn after a long night, the Bible says, "The Lord restored Job's fortunes when he prayed for his friends." God doesn't just give back what was lost, he doubles it. Flocks and herds multiply beyond what Job had before. His wealth returns, his influence is restored, and new children are born, 7 sons and 3 daughters, just as before. The Bible even names his daughters, Jemimah, Keziah, and Karen-Happuch, describing them as the most beautiful in the land, a detail that speaks to the joy they bring. Job lives long enough to see 4 generations, his life extended to 140 years, a testament to God's faithfulness. But let's be clear, the restoration isn't the heart of the story. The flux, the children, the years, they're beautiful, but they're not the point. The true transformation happened in Job's soul, in the moment he saw God. The secret of the whirlwind wasn't an explanation for his suffering, it was an encounter with the one who is enough. Job's faith, refined through fire, became a testimony that trust in God doesn't depend on blessings or answers, it depends on him. His story ends in peace, but it's a different peace than the one he had in Uzi before the storm. Back then, he was upright and prosperous. Now he's upright and transformed, a man who's seen God and knows him in a way that transcends human understanding. This is Job's journey, and it's ours too. His story asks us to look at our own lives, our losses, our questions, our moments of silence. What do we do when the whirlwind comes? When the answers don't arrive? Job shows us that faith isn't about understanding everything, it's about trusting the one who holds it all together. His pain was real, his questions were honest, and God didn't condemn him for them. Instead, he met him in the storm, revealing not a reason, but himself. That's the secret of Job's story. God is enough, even when the ground vanishes beneath us, even when the silence feels unbearable. We've walked through Job's journey together, from the heights of blessing to the depths of despair, from the accusations of friends to the voice of God in the whirlwind. It's a story that challenges us, comforts us, and calls us to a faith that endures. If this has touched your heart, if it stirred something in your soul, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, your questions, or how Job's story speaks to your life. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and give us a like to join the Untold Scriptures community. Let's keep exploring these powerful stories together. Job found God in the whirlwind. May you find him in your storm, too. Until next time, keep seeking, keep trusting, and let's see where the Scriptures take us next.